This morning I want to offer just a few words of welcome and encouragement and challenge to our confirmation class. But for the rest of the congregation, you're more than merely eavesdroppers. There's a message for all of us as well. But particularly to the confirmands. You've been through a long process this year, examining the historical beliefs of the church and crafting your own statements of faith. And as I said to the congregation earlier, I encourage the members of the congregation to read them and learn from them because they are well done and they represent a lot of deep thought and hard work. I'll even pause and ask the rest of the congregation, what would you write as your own faith statement? The writing of one is a worthwhile discipline which keeps your faith from becoming an unthought known, a thing that you know but never really think about. Confirmands, hold on to those faith statements, by the way, because they're a reminder of where you are right now. They will change and shift, grow and deepen, and in 5 or 15 or 30 years, you will find that you might say some things quite differently, or even believe some things quite differently. And that's because today is not the end of a journey, but the beginning of one. And you've not reached the end of your faith development, so I would challenge you not to think of your work as done. Becoming a baptized and confirmed member of the church means that church is not a place where you go or something you do. It is something you are. And in a way, today you are being passed a baton that has been passed along from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next, for centuries upon centuries upon centuries. But here's a challenging thought. The strongest church, the best, the most active church, the most generous church, the most faithful church, the most vibrant of churches is one generation from extinction. If the next generation lays it aside and does not take it up or treats it casually or fails to cherish it, fails to be the church, then the church will fail to be. Who will be the confirmation mentors, the teachers, the leaders, the pastors, the active worshipers in the pews, the curators of the faith, if not you? This, by the way, is the part where the rest of the congregation can lean in and listen a bit more closely. If you practice your faith part-time or not at all, then the church becomes a part-time church or a not-at-all church. We are the church. We are the givers and the workers, the learners, the leaders. And if you want there to be a church for your children and for theirs, then you must be the church for your children and for theirs. With those thoughts, I want to say just a few brief words about the parable we read a few moments ago. The parable of the sower is pretty familiar, and you may have heard or studied it before. And the parable compares the words or the work or the teachings of the faith to a planter who scatters seeds. And it speaks of some of the seed falling on the path and being eaten by birds, and some of it falls on rocky soil and develops very shallow roots, so it just withers away. And some falls among thorns and distractions, and it gets choked out, and some of it falls on good soil, and it yields richly. And as you know, in his explanation, Jesus compares these different types of soil to different types of believers. Those whose faith never takes root at all and they lose it. Those with a casual faith that doesn't have a lot of depth or make a lot of difference. Those with a distracted faith who have a million things going on and a million distractions, and their faith doesn't even make the top 100 on their priority list. And then there are those who offer rich and receptive soil for their faith to take root, change their lives, and change the world. And it's tempting to sort people into these various soil categories. That person's rocky soil, that one's weedy, brambly soil, that person had their faith snatched away altogether, and we are here. Good church-going people, good soil, right? I find a different way of looking at the parable more helpful, however. I have found that it isn't that different people are different types of soil. It's that each of us represent all of those types of soil. I've had times in my life when it's felt like the seeds of my faith have been snatched away by the birds. I've had times where my best intentions of deeper study or fuller discipleship have sprung up with enthusiasm but quickly wilted away into not so much. I've had times when my faith has been distracted at best and where worries or amusements or obligations or cares have pushed their way in and pushed my faith to the sides. And I've had times when my faith has been rich and fruitful and growing, and it feels like God is coming through to me like the clearest cell phone signal ever. I have been, I am, every one of those types of soil. And anyone who's a gardener or a planter or a grower knows that soil needs tending in order to be good and receptive soil. If you really want something to flourish and to grow, it doesn't happen by accident. You have to turn the soil and add topsoil and mulch, fertilizer and water. Pay attention to the weeds and keep them out. It's a constant labor. The more you work the soil, the more your plants will grow. The more they will bear fruit, the more you harvest. And that is why faith was never intended to be a solo practice or a personal endeavor. We commit to each other. I will practice my faith and help you to practice yours. And you practice your faith and help me to practice mine. I will challenge and grow my faith and help you to challenge and grow yours. I will encourage your faith when it's struggling, and you will encourage mine. In short, the soil of our life, of our faith, needs to be turned and tended and studied and examined and enriched and worked and reworked. And if we work together, and we labor together, and we love together, and we learn together, and if we are the church together, well, that's life-changing, world-changing stuff. If not, I want to close with a story I heard that has always been very meaningful to me. The German poet and philosopher Heinrich Heine, who lived about 150 years ago, had a way with words. He said some things that were very true if you think about them. Here are a few of his words that I find powerful. Wherever they burn books, they will also, in the end, burn human beings. Experience is a good school, but the fees are high. Where words leave off, music begins. Good thoughts, right? Well, the story in particular that I want to share is this one. Heinrich Heine and a friend of his once stood in front of the cathedral at Amiens, France, which is an absolutely huge and magnificent structure that was built over hundreds of years and without any of the technology or conveniences that we have today. People worked on it for an entire lifetime, knowing that they would never see it finished. And sons and daughters continued the work that mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers had done before. Stones were carved by hand, lifted high into the air with ramps and ropes and pulleys. And as they looked in amazement at this absolute marvel, Heinrich Heine's friend said to him, "Look at that great pile of rocks. Why don't they build cathedrals like that anymore?" And Heine replied, "They had convictions. We moderns have opinions. And you can't build cathedrals with opinions. Or, I might add, you can't change lives or overturn injustices or even live a single simple life of genuine discipleship. You can't do that with opinions. So study your faith. Live your faith. Grow your faith. Tend your soil. Be the church that you have joined today. Make your faith more than an opinion. Make it a guide star for your life. Make it your responsibility and your passion. And hold all of the rest of us accountable and responsible to continue doing the exact same thing you are. We welcome you. We are deeply proud of you. We need you. And that means, as you are able, your gifts, your time, your talents, your voices, your contributions, your discipleship. You are no longer the children of the church or the youth of the church. You are the church. Thanks be to God. Amen.